My perceptions have changed over time. Definitely looking at the patterns. I come from a family where we've always been looking out for each other in terms of group savings, with the African thing with the stokvels. My grandmother, my mother, and my aunts used to do a whole stokvel thing. We were put through university from some of those stokvel savings. So I grew up in a culture of being savings oriented, but also being inclusive in that savings and to ensure that no one else is worse off. Looking out for each other so that no one person stands out as a family. I think over time, that has evolved into once you've got a few of your savings, how do you grow them a little bit bigger? So really evolving into looking more for investments. Where do you put your money, where you can, make it work for you while you're doing other things. And also probably creating a broader wealth, where when I was growing up, people were looking at savings. It was primarily at the parental level. Us kids were not included in that. In our approach now, we're looking at including the children in that activity and getting them to understand really what is wealth creation about, and also taking it beyond just the monetary component of it to say, to have a good life. It's not just about having the money in the bank. It's about having those relationships I spoke about. It's about having access to some of those resources, but also having the time and the health to be able to enjoy that. For me, health is part of wealth. There's the monetary component, which is the finance part. There's the social component, which is people's status. There's the physical component, which is health. But also, most importantly, there's time as well, which gives you freedom to do things that you want to do. For me, health is a very critical component of that. You can have as many financial resources as you want. You could have all the time in the world. You could have the best status in the world. If you don't have the health for you to be able to enjoy that wealth, because you need to have all those four components kind of working together, but the health is an important part of that block, to ensure that if you want to give back to other people, you are around long enough to be able to do that, or you're physically fit to be able to do some of that. Because and I think it talks to the total wealth that when we give of any of our resources, it doesn't always have to be money. It could be your time, it could be your physical effort towards whatever initiative you want to do. So for me, health is critical as part of the true wealth. My life journey has taken a few turns. I've interacted with a lot of people in my personal life, in my career, who have shaped a lot of my thinking around wealth. And as I was saying earlier, my initial focus from my upbringing was more the savings-oriented, sort of accumulation of wealth. But as you grow older, as you interact with people in different positions in life, you start appreciating certain things, like having the time to be able to do things, traveling the world and being able to see what else is out there, being of good health to be able to enjoy that. But I think going back more to the monetary focus, also evolving your strategies in terms of how you accumulate that wealth that will enable you to be able to do some of the things you want to do in life. As you chat to people high up in a lot of multinational organizations, you start developing and reshaping your thinking around how do I save my wealth, how do I make my wealth grow, but also expanding it a little bit more, going into intergenerational wealth. How do we start creating wealth for our kids to ensure that they're starting off at a much better base than where we started off? In my journey in my life as a healthcare practitioner working in the pharmaceutical industry, I think once I had I had reached certain levels. I think it talks to that social wealth, the status in the organizations. You get to a point where you've achieved so much. You're feeling a whole lot more fulfilled. You've had so much personal growth that you can actually start thinking, what else can I do for someone else? So I think for me, that was part of the turning point in my career, to say I'm appreciating my achievements, and it's not because there's a lot of money in the bank, but it's because there's all sorts of other things I have achieved personally, and I feel I can contribute a whole lot more for the greater good. So for me, that was really where I started thinking, what else? Where do I now turn my focus next to? And probably something that would be more selfless of me, giving to other people rather than accumulating wealth for myself. I think there's a link between social responsibility and wealth for individuals and also for corporates. I think if people have got the resources, one, to give to the less fortunate, absolutely that is desirable. But also if you're looking at things like time and sharing of your expertise as well. A lot of people are not always looking for money. Social responsibility goes way beyond just giving someone 2 rands or 20 rands or buying them a meal. It could very well be mentoring young people. It could be really sharing of your expertise in non-profit organizations that would really benefit from that resource, and really looking at initiatives, where you could contribute towards youth programs, youth development, career coaching, things like that. So looking at all the people who've achieved so much, at an individual level, there's a lot that we can do, but also corporates don't just necessarily donate money towards social responsibility events, but also volunteer some of the expertise that they've got in the corporates to be able to assist organizations that could benefit from that expertise. Nelson Mandela's legacy, I think if you look at it, just starting from his ideology and how when he came out, he ran the country, but also the areas that he was really passionate about, specifically around children. I think it has demonstrated to us, how far you can go if you embrace a sense of the actual abundance of just about everything. Nelson Mandela shared selflessly of himself. We all know that his family really didn't get much of his time, even after his release and during his presidency. He spent a lot of time giving of himself to others, to other nations. I think that has really created true wealth for us as South Africans, the children of this country, definitely, but I think the global society at large. You go anywhere in the world and you say you're from South Africa, people get excited. You're from the Nelson Mandela country. You can feel his generosity way beyond the South African borders. And I think he's really been an asset to everyone around the globe. And for me, that is definitely a definition of someone who has left a legacy of wealth and sharing of whatever resources that he had. Wealth is partially an enabler of happiness. For me, it's broader than that. It's about having the time to spend with my family, with my children, having access to those resources to be able to give them a decent education so that as they grow up, they learn about all those facets of wealth, the facets of the financial element, but also giving of yourself, being able to assist others, having that social responsibility, but also wanting to grow the wealth of the country as well. It should not be an individual purpose. So as soon as you happy because your bank balance looks healthier than the next person, for me is a little bit problematic. I believe that we should share as much as we practically can, and part of that is really being able to uplift, part of society, whether it's cousins in the family, a random stranger, a child who's struggling to pay for their registration tuition at university, where really that kickstarting them could land them up with a follow-up, bursary or study loan or whatever, but just being able to give them that step to just trigger that mechanism. And really sharing also of your personal time, with other people. I think for me, that's what gives me happiness, being able to sit with family and share experiences, but impart knowledge, and also educate people about wealth creation. Now that one has had opportunities, has had exposure to the different mechanisms, when there's opportunity to teach people about savings, wealth creation, wealth accumulation, I think we should do that, as society, so that we improve basically, everyone's knowledge around wealth accumulation, but also how to really manage that going forward, specifically for our children. I've got a message for the young ones around the subject of wealth creation, wealth accumulation, because I think a lot of us come from humble beginnings in the township, and a lot of the young ones are wondering, how did you get there? And it's all about the focus. It's all about nurturing yourself, that personal development. And personal development doesn't start at a career level. It starts at a very young age, where you maintain the focus. You've got personal goals. You keep company that is going to support your goals and ensure that you prosper. And by that, you start accumulating some of that wealth. It may not be financial at that point, but to start accumulating the experience that will lead you to conversations with people then who will get you in the foot through the door, through the networks, in terms of starting the right career or getting to the right university and studying the right degree and getting to the workplace. So it's all about that focus. It's all about that positivity and always wanting to surround yourself with people that are going to raise you instead of really just keeping company that will not benefit your long-term plan. As I said, we all come from humble beginnings, and really just finding the right role models, the right mentors in our environment, I think is what is going to assist all our young people to do better in the future.